the other articles that are in there.
Chat on that. In front of that.
So she.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, not very long.
Yes.
That's where Rob had see it on the side.
You can do that? Yeah.
But I put his,
Thanks me for moving. I'm pretty sure Brian would.
he's able to have his mind in his camera.
I didn't say it.
Okay, call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Welcome everyone here tonight. We have our regular council members here, one virtual, everyone else in attendance at the building. I'd like to welcome the clerk, staff, and guests, and those we have with us in the virtual sense. I'd like to have the approval of the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting on January 23rd, 2026. The motion 062326.01. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole approves the agenda as submitted by the clerk for its committee meeting on June 23rd, 2026. Do I have someone move? Councillor Robertson, seconded by Councillor Short. Number 4 on the agenda, there's nothing. Oh, sorry, I didn't carry the motion. All in favor? Aye. Nay? Motion carried. Jumping ahead of myself tonight. Number 4, we have no presentations other than new business arising, which will come on number 8. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest this evening? Don't have to approve minutes. Number 7, no staff reports this evening. Number 8, business arising from prior meeting, and unfortunately our letter A person, Julie Pellerin, was unfortunately not able to present this evening, so we're going to wait to have that presentation at another time, emergency management and plan. But we can begin with B, asset management. You had L. Zamir is going to present this evening, I believe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jihad Al-Zamir. I am an engineer with Gemtech. I serve in the capacity of municipal and asset management lead. So tonight we'll talk about asset management in general. We expect at the end of the plan. Move to the next slide, please. So the agenda will start with why the asset management goals, the pillars set by the province of New Brunswick and the Department of Environment Local Government in 2026, the common challenges for municipalities, the role staff, and the benefits of asset management. Next, please. So start with why. Why do municipalities have assets? Simply, you cannot deliver services without having the assets. You cannot offer transportation services without roads, and you cannot offer firefighting services without fire trucks and fire stations, and volunteers, and so on. Why is asset management an issue now? A lot of the major infrastructure was installed in the 40s and 50s and 60s of the last century, and these assets take a long time. They have a long expected useful life, especially buried assets. Now, all of a sudden, this infrastructure reached end of life and is due for replacement. In a lot of cases, municipalities change boundaries, as you witnessed in 2023. There isn't a complete inventory of these assets and a good feel on the condition of those assets and when they're due for replacement. And many municipalities did not build enough capacity and reserve funds to address this infrastructure renewal at once. So across the board, most Canadian municipalities have this problem. There's major infrastructure coming to end of life without really having the funding to back it up and replace it. Why do you care? Because council in general sets the services to be delivered by a community, and you're responsible to upgrade and sustain the services you commit to. So it becomes an issue for council, which reflects on property tax rates and the tax rate and your accountability to constituents and so on and so forth. Next one, please. Two types of assets a municipality generally have: the physical assets, basically anything you own, from buildings, facilities, linear assets, meaning pipes in the ground and roads, equipment, your fire equipment, your grass mowing equipment, your utility equipment, specialty assets, generators, escalators, lifts, so on and so forth. And do not underestimate the parks and grounds and green canopy that you own. It's also a very important asset. So anything you own is an asset. When we capitalize, we look at assets that are $5,000 or more. Anything less than that is kind of part of your operational ongoing budget. The next most important asset is the human element. You can deliver services without the human resources. The asset management plan focuses on physical assets. It's not an HR plan. It's mostly what you have for assets and capitalization of the physical assets. Next, please, Stephanie. So the goals of asset management, basically sustain the services you have. In addition to sustaining what you have, every council, every community expect more and desire more, and things are evolving. So you want to build some capacity for new assets or enhancing what you have and the level of service. And we'll dive deeper into the level of service. But it's also important, as a very important goal of asset management is to right size the asset for the services you want to deliver. You don't need to have a 1-ton truck if you only need a 1/4-ton truck or a sedan vehicle, for example. And the same applies to a building, to a road width, to sidewalk width, so on and so forth. So right sizing the asset to the level of service is important, because as we're going to see later, has a huge implication on capital and operational budget. Next, please. The local government, Department of Local Government in 2026 issued expectations for what they like to see in an asset management plan. And it's basically 9 chapters, starting with governance, the inventory, condition, level of service, climate change implications, risk assessment, cost analysis, financial planning, and priority setting. In this presentation, we'll go over each of these chapters and what it should entail. This is what you would expect the deliverable to include at the end of this exercise. Next, please. Under governance, they like to see commitment from council to asset management. They like to have a policy in place. And in the policy, you would have you would define the various roles, role of council, role of staff, and you would identify how all your plans come together, from your municipal plan to your asset management plan, how it feeds into your long-term financial plan, how it then translates into operational plans for staff. So it's like almost a hierarchy with a commitment from council to asset management. That's governance in a nutshell. Next, please. The inventory of assets, this is the foundation. It's practically capturing everything you own, every capital asset you own, in a complete set of data. You can, under inventory, you can say the asset, what service it relates to. For example, this building is mainly related to governance and administration. What department? What's the asset category? Whether it's a building asset, fleet asset, road asset, utility asset, what have you. Under the building, you could have subsections. Is it a building envelope? Is it building mechanical, building electrical, architectural interior, architectural exterior? And then subcategory 2, for example, if it's a building envelope, is it the roof? Is it the exterior cladding? So on and so forth. And then you go to the asset description. In this case, I gave an example of a shingle on a roof. It's a building envelope, part of the roofing system, and the description, it's shingles. They like to see the acquisition year or construction year, the expected useful life. This will then give you the replacement year. You know when this asset is due for replacement. The acquisition cost gives you an idea about your replacement cost if you apply inflation. And then some asset characteristics, length, diameter, material, etc. And they want to know this asset, what climate factors impact them the most. And an event of shingles, talk about high temperatures, rain, high winds, and so on. So the inventory is the foundation. It's all the raw material that you can build on. Next, please. The condition, we basically give a ranking, 1 to 5 ranking of the condition of the asset. It's mostly an age proxy based on how old is the asset compared to its expected useful life. What also kicks in, and it's relatively new, is the performance of this asset. I'll give you an example. I was talking to Josh and Corey here, and there's a half-ton truck, but it's already, the transmission already slipping. It looks great. It's a good truck. It's a new truck, but performance-wise, it's not meeting that bar. So it's not fair to say this condition is good. It doesn't need to be replaced when it's really not meeting the performance aspect. It doesn't give you a clear idea about what's new, what's due for replacement. If we say, oh, it's good. Same thing applies for, let's say, this council chambers. If it's meeting the requirements, great. If it's too tight and it's not meeting the requirements, we could flag it as good condition, not meeting performance, hence it needs to be replaced.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
What benefit would council or whomever have by saying, oh, it's a great truck, we'll keep it going and so on and so forth, because you're gonna end up paying in the long run anyway. Maybe maintenance for a little bit longer until you get funding or whatever it happens to be, but I don't see the purpose why, or were you just showing a hypothetical situation?
It's an example where you could say, you could look at the asset.
Yes.
What, from an age perspective, and it looks great. It checks good or very good, ranks to 1.
Right, okay.
Meaning it's 80 to 100% of its life. But in reality, you need to replace it because it's not meeting your expectations.
Right.
So in order to flag it for council and the asset management plan that this asset needs to be replaced, as we look at the performance, whether it's meeting performance or not.
Okay.
The same applies for anything else really, a lift station that's good, the pumps are good, you know, but it's not meeting the flow requirements. You need to have a bigger pump. Have more development in that area, so on and so forth. So if this is new, look at the asset not just from whether it's good or not physically, but whether or not it's meeting your expectation to your desired level of service. Segue into the 4th chapter. Think about level of service as your star rating. To what level you're committing to deliver that service. And it applies to all the services across the board. I'm not going to go through all service, but think about governance, for example. We commit to bi-weekly meetings, you know, or once a month meetings. Waste collection. We commit to once a week waste collection and curbside. Whatever the service, fire response, we commit to X minutes fire response. So every service you have, you got to establish a level of service that you are accountable for, basically. That's what level of service is all about. And I'm going to dive more into it, Tiffany. See how it impacts your capital and operational. So say council is determined to offer active transportation as a service. These are three various types of trails. The first one is path in the woods, pretty simple, low maintenance. The second one is wider, some gravel, some signage, requires more material and more maintenance to upkeep. The third one is wheelchair accessible, some lines paved, it could have some lighting, some benches and other amenities for bicycles, so on and so forth. So as you can see in this demonstration, all these three assets are intended to offer transportation services, but the capital service to build this one is totally different than the first one. Please, Stephanie. The same applies to operational expenditures. Say you're mowing the lawn and you commit to weekly mowing in a certain part. It's one price tag. And if you commit to mowing every 2 weeks, different price tag. Waste collection, you can apply the same principles. When do you open your facilities for use? You have an outdoor rink. It's becoming more challenging to maintain ice. Obviously, if you commit to opening it early in the season, you're gonna have to buy refrigeration plants, so on and so forth. So, and even expanding the hours of operation would impact your operational costs. Same thing with snow removal. If you commit to plowing after the storm once or after a certain accumulation, these are two different levels of service that would mean two different costs and human resources required. So this is just to illustrate how the level of why it's very important for council to determine the level of service. Next one, please. Chapter 5 is around climate change and climate hazards. What's required here is for each municipality to identify the projected climate change in their community, whether it's increased rain events, increased snow, higher temperatures, higher wind, so on and so forth, forest fires, drought, and associate those risks to the assets they have. So think about stormwater management, for example. If you're replacing a certain culvert, if it's due for replacement, you don't necessarily replace it with the same size. It may no longer meet the flow requirements because of climate change and heavier rain events. You would replace it with a bigger culvert type of deal. So this is just a small example on how you would, same thing for heating and ventilation. You could have a system that's meeting today's temperatures, but not necessarily the projected temperatures for the next 20, 30 years. So you would upgrade your heating ventilation system. So that's the implication of level of service on the assets. Next, please. Under climate change, also the Department of Environment Local Government require you to report on your greenhouse gas emissions. So we will develop a tool for you that would track your fuel consumption, whether it's electricity, propane, gasoline, or diesel. And then you can establish a baseline for your greenhouse gas emissions. And from that baseline, you can commit to reductions, whether you could say, okay, we're going to commit to reduce our gasoline by electrifying our fleet, or some of our fleet. Obviously, heavy equipment you cannot electrify, or we're going to make our buildings more efficient and install automated system, bring the temperatures down at night or when not occupied, so on and so forth, improve the lighting systems. So you could have a commitment to reduce that baseline. And in some communities, it's very challenging because they're growing. So they don't commit to reducing. We commit to sustaining status quo because we're growing. So nobody's actually forcing you to commit to reduction, but you can establish a baseline based on where you stand. Or so you can establish a target based on the baseline. And you can break it by the service, like the assets associated with the service, what's the greenhouse gas emission associated with the service. As you take on new services, obviously your greenhouse gas emissions are going to increase because you're going to have more equipment and more facilities. So if you take on snow clearing services in the areas that you don't, what the province did with now, you have to be careful because that's going to add to your greenhouse gas emissions. Next one. Also, the risk chapter is very important. When it comes to risk, it's a point system, 25 points. It's a multiplication of the likelihood of an event happening by the consequence of that event. To keep it simple, the probability of an asset failing is a lot of times associated with its age. Sometimes climate change impacts that asset and adds stress to it. But a lot of times it's a proxy associated to age. The older it is, the higher the chance of it failing. And this would impact the probability of failure. The consequence of failure is how that asset, the importance of that asset to the service delivery. For example, if a cross culvert is under a main street, the consequence of failure is higher because you have 1,000 cars crossing a day versus same cross or similar cross culvert crossing in a subdivision where there's only a couple homes on. The consequence of failure of that asset is way less. So the risk, overall the risk, one would score 25, one could score 5. This will help you prioritize when you have conflicting priorities and a limited amount of funding every year. The risk assessment helps you in your prioritization. Going back to the same example, one culvert here, same size, same cost to replace both. One is very critical to the service, one is not so critical. So you prioritize the one that's more critical. Next one, please. Cost analysis, again, based on the value of your asset, present value, 2026, you can identify the cost of your core and high value assets when they're due for replacement, project that cost, project that cost into the future. So a half ton that's 2 years old today, you're going to replace it 15 years from now. Say you're going to accept 17-year life cycle on it. So in 2035, you're expected to pay today's value plus the inflation till 2035. Once you establish the cost of when you're going to replace those assets, you know each year how much you're expected to spend to recapitalize. It will enable you to go to chapter 8, the next slide, and have financial planning. So now, after you have an inventory of all your assets, you know when these assets are due for replacement, you know how much they're going to cost you, you're able to build a financial plan and be proactive. And know that in 2027, I'm going to replace these assets, they're going to cost me that much. So it's easier for you to allocate your capital funding, easier for you to build reserves, easier for you to also apply for funding grants. And that's the main drive behind the Department of Environment, Local Government mandating that municipalities have an asset management plan and a long-term financial plan for to make sure that every community has a good handle on their expenditures and would help the province in return figure out how they're going to allocate the money and when. So yeah, the financial planning basically shows you when you're expected to spend, allows you to figure out the average required every year, and then you can compare the average required expenditures to what you actually have in budget, identify that gap, and then figure out a way to close it. Whether you, again, you leverage your funding to apply for grants, whether you have to reduce your level of service or cut down on certain services. Maybe you have to increase tax rate a little bit to close that gap and sustain what you have. Yeah, the last one is priority setting. Like I mentioned earlier, when you have conflicting priorities, and trust me, you will have conflicting priorities, any municipality has, especially when you have multiple directors. Recreation have their priorities, the utility has its priority, the governance has their priorities, public works have their priorities, and you only have a finite amount of money. You cannot possibly meet everybody's priorities. Then you go back to the drawing board, you go back to the asset management plan and say, okay, what's at the highest risk? What services can we adjust? What levers can we adjust? And you don't have to adjust forever. You could adjust a certain service for some time and then ramp it up or down. This is in a nutshell, basically at a high level. I don't want to bore you with much details, but this is what you would expect to see in the coming asset management plan. Last slide, I believe it's for questions. Oh, no, I got still few slides to go. Common challenges, can you click again, please? Asset replacements. It's very seldom that you would replace a failing asset that was built 50 years ago with the exact same asset for the next 50 years. People expect bigger and better. So on the books, you could have an outdoor pool for $2 million. Comes time to replace it, 9 times out of 10, the community expects something bigger and better. And all of a sudden, this 2 million is 5 and 6 million. The next challenge, is climate change. Same thing, we gave the culvert example. Another example is roads are intended to last 12, 13, 14 years, depending on traffic and many other things. But because of climate change, because of the heat, because of the rain, because of the freeze-thaw cycles, they're failing prematurely. So that's another challenge. And the third challenge is free assets. Be careful when the community approach you with a donation or a free asset. Everything comes with a price tag. You may not pay for it right away, but you're committing to operational, you're committing to staffing, you're committing to recapitalizing that asset when it comes to end of life, basically. Whether if it's a building, you're gonna replace the windows at some point, the HVAC system, the roof, so on and so forth. So be very careful of free assets. They always have a price tag. So these are the challenges, and we see that a lot. A lot of communities are approached by local groups which are no longer able to sustain what they have for one reason or another. Demographic changes, passion is not there anymore, but you find a few people that are adamant that we must sustain this asset, we must keep it. So these are the main challenges. That's next chapter. The role of council, obviously, decide on the services, the level of service, you set the capital budget, and you decide when the asset should retire. You approve the budgets and so on and so forth. So that's the main role of council at a high level. Once you establish this, the role of staff, the next slide, is to run with your direction and develop operational plans, develop financial plans, apply for funding, and make sure the departments collaborate, especially when assets are overlaid. For example, if you're resurfacing a street, it's the best time to look at the manholes and the pipes under that street to see if they're due for replacement as well, and do the whole thing at once. You don't want to be resurfacing, then digging the next year to replace the pipe. And I would look at the inventory or the asset management plan as a living document. Make sure because you're always acquiring new assets or offloading assets, so it always needs some upkeep, and you can do it in-house. It's an Excel sheet basically on steroids. So next one. Benefits of asset management, there's a long list. I think over the course of presentation, I've highlighted most of them. Informs council priorities and key decisions, let you know what's ahead of you. Improves management and accountability structure. You can justify saying no. I know for a lot of politicians, it's hard to say no to residents who are keen and adamant about certain things, but when you say, look, it's not in my asset management plan, it sometimes helps you say no if you want to say no. It will be the basis for your long-term financial planning and enhances planning and synchronization of asset replacement. And sustaining your assets and being proactive saves you a lot of money as well. So when you know a certain lift station, for example, is past its expected useful life, you can keep band-aiding it all you want, but there comes a point where it's gonna cost you more to maintain it than to replace it with a new asset. And it can be the basis for tax rates and utility rates. As you know, utilities should be self-funded and fully funded, and a lot of times you have to know what your expenditures are to determine revenue, and the asset management plan helps you with that. I believe now is the end of the presentation. Happy to take any questions, Your Worship.
Any questions? I think you were very thorough and gave us a lot to think about and to discuss. As far as I'm concerned, I mean,
The only thing I would add is that, we've hired this year sort of a Geod and Gemtech to help us sort of build a base, and there's policy. When this does become a normal annual process for us, it's not me pitching for a resource, but this is probably a 450 to 500 hour task at the end of the day, from end to end, from doing inventories and undertaking. And but it is, it's absolutely fundamental and very critical to all your financial planning, but it is not something you do in a day. So yeah, and that's where they'll need to be after we get the first iteration or first thing done with Jihad. We'll have to have somebody appointed or somebody, designated on staff to do this. Maybe a combination of a couple people, but
well, with anything new like that, there's gonna be upfront costs. So we'll just have to absorb or plan for it.
Just one question. We did get attached to document. So this, our municipality of Five Rivers asset management plan, March 16th, 2026. Is that like a finalized document? Is that still being worked on? We were attached to it from Rob. I don't know if that's from you guys or.
It's not ringing a bell. Asset management 2026.
which one?
The phase 2 asset management plan, the Five Rivers document that you.
I don't know, there's 5 rivers out there. I shared the general document, phase 2 requirements of the province release. And that one.
From March 16th, 2026. Did you type in that?
Asset management plan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They are requests for proposal.
that's the RFP we sent out to, didn't recall that. That's the RFP or the request for proposal that we put on Ambon. And that's the one that Gemtech bid on along with 6 other, to provide this service this year.
Okay,
That's
so
what-
that was the request.
Yes,
So Gemtech got the contract,
that's correct.
and are they developing an asset management
Yeah.
plan for us?
There.
So that's in the works right now. Any approximate date when you think you kind of have a goal to have that? No, like if it's 2027, I don't care, just curious.
I will plow through as fast as we can.
No.
We're trying to build a solid inventory of assets
Okay,
as in discussions with Rob and Corey and Josh. We want to make sure you've acquired more territory in addition to Rexton. So we want to make sure we capture all the assets as much as we can. It's probably not going to be 100% complete, but we'll make sure we have a solid inventory. And we'll go as quickly as possible, preferably before your capital budget discussions, so at least you know what's coming ahead for next year.
So your goal is about November.
Before, I'm gonna say October.
And further to that, so if Gentech is doing this, so what you're referring to, would that be beyond what they're doing?
It's a repeat, like, so once we have, the master list of assets in place and we have this year's assessment of them, like the renewable cost, replacement cost, conditions, so forth, you'll have to redo that every year. So as you add assets, as the assets, things can change, you can have failures of streets or sewer.
That's not gonna be a massive undertaking.
It should be
as opposed to what he's doing.
Should be incremental. Well, and the other thing, the important note that you should bring up, you're right. That's correct, is that it should be incremental because you don't have to go back to the drawing book. You've already got your master list. You're only adding what's new or been taken out or what have you. But, we also did not start from scratch here either. And that when, in 2017 or 18, Crandall Engineering and, who has since been acquired by Anglo, did provide us with a asset management plan at that time. So we provided that to Gentech as sort of a baseline. It's ours, it wasn't Anglo's. They did it for us back then. That was sort of the first iteration about a decade ago for the province. So that was a starting point. And since then, we've had the $3.1 million sewer upgrade. We bought lots of vehicles and other things. So that's, and that wasn't maybe, there may have been things missing or not covered in that original plan, but it is a good block or chunk of data that we're building on or updating now.
Right, and that wasn't my correction, I guess. It was just in terms of what you had just said prior to that, in terms of all these extra hours that were gonna be required, but if there is a foundational level report or thing that they're doing, we shouldn't have to spend like tons of hours right away, like it should be incremental, like you said, so that it's moving forward. It's,
Yeah, so
as you said, a living document.
The important distinction there, though, is that just getting your assets updated and having that table of assets with your values and your risk ratings and all those things, that should take not much time. It's always the prioritization, it's the figuring out whether there are grants available and how you finance it. That's what takes the time. It's not so much just updating your base data.
Right.
It's that analysis and decision-making comes on that you're presenting to council and that, so some administrator, some person here has to do that first, major run through. That's
Thank
what
you for
takes the time.
clarifying that. Thank you.
Like you said, yearly, do we hire Gentech yearly? Like, no, once it's up to the pay.
It's alarmed to hear that. But, no, the plan is not to do that. It's really to get the first staff.
Get it, then we have data.
Yes, and then after that for us to sort of roll with it.
Perfect.
There may be some occasion we
Need
need
it
service, but it's not like a whole, you're not building the whole structure.
every year, no.
Yeah, it's more like this is building the house, and after we may upgrade, the kitchen, but we're not
Yeah.
gonna be doing the whole house again.
Perfect.
One last thing, is there a certain time of year that these grants are more available than others, or is it kind of throughout the year?
Well, there are perennial grants and annual grants, and there are ones that are there every year. So things like CCBF and capital renewal are annual or perennial.
Or is it
Every year you have money. And it doesn't matter for those, whether you're early or late in getting them. It's just a matter when you get around to it, the sooner you apply and get the money. Or in that case, the money is available to you so long as you properly fill out your form and you follow up with a document. Other grants, like say, what was the Housing Accelerator Fund or certain types of pre-construction CHIF, pre-construction infrastructure, those do depend on how quickly you apply for them. There's no time of year necessarily when they can come out at different points of the year. As an example of that, I think the Canada Building Canada Strong program that is going to be new and launched sometime around August, September, was announced by Kearney. That's happening to come out in August and September. They can come out any time of the year. So one of the things in the background, you're always kind of following, other than the standard ones that are there year after year, or at least for an extended period, then you are looking for particular ones that come up and, yeah, they can be federal, they can be provincial, and they can come out any time of year.
So that's gonna be a task along with physical inventory every year to kind of see what grants are out there and what you qualify.
Yeah, so in another, maybe in part of the orientation I mentioned, that's why it is really good to have somebody sort of looking for those. And a lot of times you can just, you network like AMNB, UMNB associations, like, well, they become aware to one municipality, you'll find out about, like not hotline, but there's a network that you can plug into and you should hear about some of that. But There are also rare grants that may happen to line up with something you're interested in, that you can go after that. But the ones that are common, most municipalities, you do end up hearing about them. But you really want to have someone kind of proactively or actively looking for those and seeing whether they'll fit in all times. Because at a higher level, what you have is you have a set, like if, let's say we go through this process, we determine, we want to replace assets A, B, C, D, F, G. Now, what you're kind of doing is going out and saying, okay, here's all the known funding programs, the ones I mentioned earlier. Here's some of the new ones, and which ones line up with it, and which ones we have a probability of being successful with, and sometimes it's a matter of effort, et cetera. So you always want to be doing that process, but small staff can be hard for someone to take a significant part of their time to do it. But yes, you'd always want to be looking for.
Anyone else? Councillor Crosby, you're going ahead. Okay, well, I guess, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next. So I guess, we will go to section C, our rural plan, presentation by Sal.
All right, good evening, everyone. I can take your place, Rob, but I don't want you to leave.
No, very good.
All right, so I have a presentation, so we can put it on here. There's two documents. I'll pass these, this is the,
Which one do you want for us?
presentation to, yeah, fiber. Perfect. I'm not sure if Rob, you circulated preliminaries.
Yeah, they were in the
Okay,
package.
so I printed some copies, so I'll move those around. If anyone wants a copy, I. Okay, so there you go. Okay.
Which one?
Oh, yeah.
So, right. Oh, perfect. I feel like I'm in somebody else's seat. I feel a little out of place, but
You can go to the, if you want to. It's up to you.
no, it's all good. So, first of all, I'm Serge Boucher. I'm the senior planner at the Kent Regional Service Commission. First, I want to congratulate the new council. And it's a privilege to work with you guys for the next 4 years on land planning and zoning issues in 5 Rivers. And I would like to thank Rob for being part of our team and committee with the zoning topic. Since we started working with Rob, he's been really helpful, and it's been a pleasure to work with him. So now to the rural plan. So prior to the new council, we started a rural plan process. So what's been done, where we are now, and what next? So we can get to there. So, so the municipality of 5 Rivers was established in 2023 with the amalgamation of the village of Rexton, for the Harcourt, a large portion, 95% of the local service district of Welford, and a portion of Saint Paul, and a portion of Cap-de Richibouctou, and the LSD of Richibouctou as well. So, following in 2023, there was a provincial local governance reform. And the province has a goal of having land use regulation across the province by January 2028. Therefore, land use planning is becoming mandatory in every region of the province. And all areas of New Brunswick will have to have some sort of zoning or land use regulation. So
is that dependent on the,
the option of having no zoning, because in the community or across New Brunswick, some people say, well, we just won't have a zoning. Like a lot of areas in New Brunswick, there's no zoning, but that option of having absolutely no zoning is not, it's not an option.
thank you, but that wasn't my question. What I was going to ask you was, with this zoning, is that going to be the responsibility of the council, or is that the Kent Regional Service? Besides that?
It will be done in partnership with the municipality. So the rural plan is a bylaw of council.
So the bylaws supersede what is planned from the KRS, or?
We do the rural plan or the zoning as a responsibility, and we do it with council, but at the end of the day, it's it's council that decides, if it's, what is being presented is good for the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
So the commission doesn't decide what is where and what type of zoning is where. At the end of the day, the ultimate decision is council, not the commission. We are there as a coach to guide through the process, but we don't have the final say on that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Sorry for the interruption.
No.
Continue.
Questions are, if anyone has a question, just go ahead and we'll answer that. So we can go to the next slide. So as of now, so as of today, all of the areas that we mentioned in the previous slide has no zoning. So only the core, so the village of Rexton and the local service district of Harcourt has zoning. So everywhere else in Five Rivers, there is no zoning. So the rural plan for Rexton is, was done in 2012. Well, it wasn't done, but it was adopted in 2012. So it whether or not there was a amalgamation of the new Five Rivers, 2012 is much due for something updated. And the second one was Harcourt, which was adopted in 2017. So on this, I don't have my pointer, but. So on the next slide, we have a map of Five Rivers. So. There is nothing. Oh, it's working on there, but when I put it on the screen, it's not working. Okay, so, anywho, so the part in yellow to the left, that would be the Harcourt region. So that area does have zoning. So you see the light yellow.
Over here.
So yes, so that area does have planning as we speak. All the white area is the rest of Five Rivers. As you see, there's not much, and we have the Rexton core right over there, so the former village. does have some zoning, and we have a expanded map in the corner over there. So if you look at it, roughly maybe 80%, maybe 85% of all of Five Rivers has absolutely no zoning. So we can go to the next slide. So with that being said, in 2023, there was with the amalgamation of the municipalities, we knew that we would have to do some zoning all over Kent. So we established, well, we did not establish, but the prior council established a committee of 8 members. And it was Alexandria Alsano, Tina Beers, Karen Campbell, Jane Manger, Janet Plume Petley, Shane Thompson, Rob, the CAO, and myself, Serge Boucher, the senior land use planner. So that was the committee that was selected by the municipality. So we can go to the next one. So in the spring of 2025, there was a preliminary study completed. So that's the document that that was printed out for council, and Rob also attached that to an email. So the preliminary study is, I don't know if anyone went through it a little bit, but it's a good base to know what is the community. It has statistics and history and all sorts of information regarding the municipality. So if someone would come to Five Rivers and wouldn't know anything about the municipality, they could go through that and get a pretty good idea of, oh, okay, so this is where Five Rivers is, and this is what you would find, and it would give you a pretty good picture of population and things like that, history. So it gives someone who doesn't know anything about the municipality, I mean, pretty general information of what it is. So that was completed in last year in the spring. And like I said on the previous slide, in the summer, there was a committee that was selected. We had our first meeting in October 2025. So last fall, and we had one last meeting on May 6th. So the week prior to the municipal election. So with that committee, we were able to go through all of the regular meetings. So we went through 14 meetings during that 8-month process. And we were working fairly rapidly. Usually we have one meeting per month, but we had sometimes 2-3 meetings per month, because we really wanted to have that part done prior to the election. And like I said, 12 to 18 months usually, and we did that work in 8 months. Sometimes it can take up to 24 months. That was the experience I had in the past. So this one was really it was done quickly, but we were able to tackle all of the topics required by the community planning.
So nothing was skirted in order.
No, it's just that we were working very fast on the meetings, and I mean, we worked doing, because the zoning map is prepared. So every week we had an extra layer. We started working on the map, even before the committee. So we went on the terrain. We went to see in person what was there. We did some drone views. We serviced New Brunswick for to see what's there. We had people on the committee who knew where certain things were, so we did some satellite views of Five Rivers to see where agricultural land was and so on. So we had different levels of information that we overlapped to see where things were.
So did the committee accomplish their goals, reach their goals?
Yes.
And is there a need for this committee to continue in the future? If they achieved everything?
Usually after the last meeting, the committee comes back together, look at the documents, and then they say, yeah, this reflects what's been discussed, and what we did is a good example of what we did, and now the document should be sent to council for review and adoption. And at that meeting, usually the committee is, I'm not sure what's all.
Resolved.
Yes, I was looking for the name in English, I wasn't sure how to.
And then we.
So you'll
But-
still have one meeting left to review it.
Yes, but the thing is, I've done a dozen of plans before this, but never has it happened that it was in the middle of an election. So that's why it's kind of new and a little bit different for us. Because now there's a possibility that perhaps council could rename that committee just for it to finish its job or not. That's really up to council to decide, but it leaves a little bit the committee and council in a tough spot. Because the committee did its job, but the last 1 to 10, the number 110, it hasn't been done, which is looking at the document and saying, this looks good. We're recommending that to council, because usually a work committee that's after its job is done, it's sending it to council. But in this case, the committee was there, prior council is not there anymore, so it's a little.
So do we, as a council, reach out to this committee and see if they're willing to do that final few steps? Or is that something that you guys handle or Rob handles or
I
kind
think
of?
it's I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think it would be up to us to decide whether we wanted to either appoint a new committee and make those decisions, or because we haven't seen this document, it hasn't been presented to us yet, and perhaps it might be, I guess, in a good sense, of best practice to have some people maybe from this group look over that paper before it comes to us.
That'll be, well, do we look it over before it comes to council?
If you have a committee, you can.
If you have, okay.
Yeah, yes,
As a point of view, I don't think you technically need a new committee for council to look at it, council to just look at
yeah,
Right, that's.
I'm just saying, like, the committee members would be proud of the work they did for them to finish it and then be able to present it to old council or new council.
Right.
Which, like, they put their time and effort into it.
Yes, they have.
It's their project, so. Do we have, like, I know we probably don't have a responsibility to reach out to them, but is that a decision council makes to say, we do want to reach out to this committee, or we're gonna start a new one?
This council appointed that committee.
yes,
That's the issue.
it. So I think you do either one. Certainly, if one option was to, as Sir says, to have the former committee just say yes, or what we agreed to, because they haven't seen that whole document yet. You can do that. That does not preclude you from having a secondary review of that document after the committee said, yes, we did A, and a secondary review of that, and say, if you want to make minor amendment or, whatever, then you can do that too.
Well, we're definitely gonna to review it, like, we can't just.
Oh, that is
True.
That is part of it, not just some, that is part of the process regarding, so, it has to be approved by council of the province, and there needs to be some sort of, and this can come in various forms, but the public has to see it as well.
Yes,
And that's usually over an extended period, so in that public viewing, you can have, you can invite certain members of the public, like say agricultural sector or certain stakeholders can review it for specifically for those elements, then the general public, anyone who lives in the community will be able to see it. You would post it on the website, you may have open houses. So that part is for council to decide how they want to do that. But generally speaking, there's definitely a public sharing that information which has to take place, and not to overgeneralize, but there would be like specific audiences. You might have special targeted sessions with things like maybe business, agriculture, industry, et cetera. And then you'd have sessions for all the public to attend and participate in.
so, with this committee, so usually just maybe, I'm ignorant to this, for my knowledge. So when this committee would meet, and maybe Jen, sorry, when the committee would meet, you were on the committee, correct?
Yes, not as a voting member, but just Serge and I were both non-voting.
Right.
members.
So
Advisors.
was there any, consultation with public, or does that happen after the fact? Because I'm not, like I said, I'm ignorant to this. I'd like to know, do you, as the committee was meeting, did they take all of these things into consideration, do their planning and everything that they did? But was there any public consultation done?
There was informal consultation, I mean, there might have been informal, just individuals spoke, other members of the public, but there was no structured formal, public engagement.
And,
And I might add, that's not abnormal.
okay,
And so, like, and Serge can correct me, but, my experience with another, regional service commission, sometimes you can have a planner actually fully draft without an advisory committee at all.
right,
They can draft a document based on material, and they can then go straight to council. Many do take the option that we chose of forming a committee and having a committee develop it with the planner who has knowledge of how other zoning plans have been done in surrounding communities and problems generally, to an understanding of like provincial regulations, best practices and so forth. And so it can be done either way, but at that stage, they're typically, you can have public meetings, you could have chosen to do that, but a lot, I can tell you, do not. They sort of, that part where they like deeply dive into the details of the rural plan assessment, that sometimes can be done, as I say, just by a planner alone.
I guess what
By the advisory
good job, Rob, but
Yeah.
what I was thinking in terms of, I know on some of those plans that I looked at, they had sections on a website where people could give their input as to what they would like you to focus on, what they thought were priorities and so on and so forth. That's what I was alluding to.
Yes. Yeah, and that part has to take place and should be part of the process. But usually if you say, let's call it phase A, where you're just simply reviewing, drafting the details of it, that can happen during that stage or it can happen after that stage. In this case, it'll happen after.
Right.
Either way, it's done around the province. And that's sort of the approach we took here, which was consistent with how other plans in the area have been done. So,
Okay,
but that public consultation has to happen. And that's what sort of when Serge, I think, in our presentation was saying what comes next, that's one of the big next.
yeah, well, that's the only thing that worries me, is because if we do have this plan and people have put their heart and soul into this plan, and then if it's presented to the public and the public is not really pleased with it, then we're almost going back to the drawing board again in some senses for certain things. That was the only thing I was alluding to.
We'll talk a little bit more about the next step in the next few slides. So what is rural planning? So rural planning is a process that helps communities and residents assess their future development option, coordinate their resource management, and develop ways of organizing change in their community. Like all land use planning in New Brunswick, rural planning is conducted according to the provision of the Community Planning Act. Next slide. So what is a rural plan? So the rural plan is designed specifically to suit the needs of rural areas. Since Five Rivers is mostly a rural area, a rural plan is better suited for the municipality instead of having a municipal plan and zoning bylaw which you would typically find in a city or town. So it basically has two parts. One, which outlines the community objectives or vision for the future. Those are the policies and proposals that are established. And one, which contains the strategies or means by which these objectives will be achieved. So the second part would be the zoning part. So what are the components? So the components are, like I said, the policies and proposal. So in that section, you have the policies and proposal on several topics that we will have on the next slide. But yeah, so we have that part, and then we have the zoning provision. That part is more of what each zone contains, what you can do in each of the zone, residential, commercial, industrial. So you have a list of what is permitted within those zones, and you have all the other details that you find in the zoning section, whether it's the size of signage, the number of parking spaces required. All those types of details, those are in the zoning provision. Or another, like the at-home businesses, like the type of businesses that you can do at home, that would be in the zoning provision. So if someone wants to have some sort of at-home business, the permitted type of business that you can do at home will be listed in that section. So that section has all the details on for those types of topics in the zoning. And of course, in third, you have the zoning map, which is the map of the area, which with all of the zones that are designated for each and all parcel of land in Five Rivers. So every PID, every property has a zoning for it, whether it's residential, agriculture, or commercial, and so on.
And sir, just a quick note is that while you're doing the rural plan, normally if you're gonna rezone your property from a residential to a commercial, you have to go through a public hearing process, and it's a long protracted process. It takes meetings and months usually to go through. During this rural plan, you can actually truncate or make some of those changes within the rural plan process and not have to go through like meetings and so forth to rezone. So one of the things you do with the public is you welcome them that if you have a piece of land and if you want rezoned, it doesn't necessarily say you just automatically say yes, but there's an opportunity to do that without having to go through the regular, if you will, zoning
Is
process.
that done through the county service or is that done?
It's done as part of the rural plan
Yeah.
process.
We usually, when there's a rezoning of that type, like I was saying, in the rural plan, you only have one document to change. If you have a municipality, you have the municipal plan and the zoning plan. So that adds documents to change, a longer lapse of time to do it. And yeah, it's really to the advantage of the municipality to have that type of bylaw for them.
So if, say, a company or a person would like to rezone their area,
Mhm.
they would go to Kent, or they would come to the municipality first, or would they?
The thing is, with a rezoning, council always has the last word. The final decision is always council. So when it comes to construction or a variance on a building and it's a technicality like that, that will go to the commission because we have building inspector who are certified and they know exactly
Right.
for things that are on that level, that will go to the commission and they will issue a variance.
So the variance, is that something that's based on objectivity?
Yeah, if it's like a building, the roof is a little bit higher than what is permitted.
Yes,
It will go to the commission, but we always consult with the municipality.
okay,
The difference with the zoning, like if you change from residential to commercial,
yes,
the last word is always council. That's how the Community Planning Act is.
Okay.
It says that the last word on that will always be the municipality. So council, the request will come here. Council will ask the commission for a recommendation on that project. The commission will do a recommendation, whether after they do their finding, after they do their research, they will have findings on that request. And they will give that to council and say, we don't think this is a good project. So we do not recommend. It can come here, council can say, thank you for a recommendation, but we are going ahead with the project regardless.
Okay.
Or if we say, yes, this is a good project, here it can come and say, nope, we're not going ahead. So it's important to remember that council has the last word for the zoning aspect.
very good, thank you.
And just a note, with respect to rezoning through this rural plan process, give an example, you could post on your website a form or at the form for an application where people would say, I would like my property PID rezoned from X to Y. And then that is something through the rezoning that you could compile a list of those. That's something maybe the committee or the planner or someone yourself might recommend. Then it comes back to council to say through that process, are we going to do that through the rural plan? Or are we going to, we're gonna say, no, we're gonna let that happen naturally or normally as it would through the, planning process with meeting and so forth. But it's a way of, I'll say knocking off or addressing a number of those, it's kind of a special one-time opportunity to rezone property without going through the long extended, process that it otherwise would go through as, and rezoning and variants are kind of like the normal. You get in a small town, probably a half dozen to a dozen a year that usually go before council, and somebody's building a sun porch and the setback is 2 feet shorter than what it's supposed to be, and they say, well, we really like the sun porch, it's not. So you build a case and then it goes before council.
But for something like that, would you handle that as a CAO as opposed to bringing that to council since it's just a minor thing, or would that all?
No, it pretty much always goes to council.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you think of planners, like Serge by title was a senior planner. He's probably the most common bylaw enforcement officer we have. Because really what they're doing in planning is enforcing your bylaws.
Yeah.
So in your rural plan, it says like, you have to be, your house can't be closer than 15 feet from the sidewalk or whatever it is, that's probably, it's not a good example. But anyway, whatever that rule is, and then when someone goes to build something that doesn't comply with that, or someone says they're gonna put up a big temporary tent on their property store or something before they move to another location, and it's not really compliant with that. All those things ultimately, they're either enforced strictly, or if the company comes or the person comes and says, we would like you to let us do this, because it's a special exception, that'll come to council. That's nothing I would just unilaterally decide. It would have to be a council decision.
good, thank you.
All right, we can go to the next slide. So the advantages, like I was saying, contain statements and direction and zoning provision in one complete document. So just one document instead of 2. It's more flexible. It's geared to rural land use issues, and is faster to adopt and amend because you only have one document to deal with. So these are the topics that the committee discussed. And those topics, maybe if we can remove just the corner over there, because there's a missing.
I can't,
No, okay.
yeah, it's,
What would be over there would be, resource,
Yeah,
natural.
natural resources.
Yeah. So all of those topics are mandatory by the Community Planning Act. What does what that means is that the rural plan must deal with all of those topics. So a municipality could not say, well, we're not dealing with community space or industrial, we're just not going to entertain that or take position on that, and we're just gonna do the topics that we want. That's not possible. So each of the topics were discussed and position were taken on all of those. So those are recreation, open space, community, institutional, commercial, residential, agriculture, industrial, conservation, protection, and natural resources. And the colors are all related to the topics that they are in. Meaning that when you see a zoning map or land use regulation, if you see red, that means it's commercial related. Blue would be the institutional, open space, and things like that. Residential is always yellow. So when you see a land use regulation and you see yellow, you know you're talking about residential. Agriculture is brown, industrial would be purple, and conservation and natural resources would be in the green color. So if you can just take one little bit of this slide would be the colors. So when we are talking about yellow, residential, automatic, red, commercial, and so on. So I just put those colors just as a reminder to just a little information that's easy to remember, and it will come back in the future.
As a minor point, a lot of properties in Rexon can be commercial or residential along Main Street.
Yes.
How are they color coded? Are they given?
So everywhere in we like to have municipal plans that are similar and have the same type of colors or abbreviation or name when we talk about a zone. Like commercial usually is like in the former village of Rexon, it was commercial central, which is red. And in that zone, you can actually have residential and commercial and actually some blue, so community use as well. So usually the central zone, which is very often found on Main Street in communities all over Kent County, that would be the red color on the maps. I don't have the map here tonight, but probably at our next meeting, we'll go through the proposed zoning map. But yeah, so since most of our area had no prior zoning, what can we do? So I think what the first is be flexible and not too constricted. What we learned when we did zoning in Kent County and pretty much everywhere where there's no zoning, you can't start with very rigid and very zoning that's very not permissive. If an area for decades or hundreds of years, there's never been a zoning there, you can't come over there with a zoning map and a zoning bylaw that's very restrictive. People in rural areas don't want to be regulated like they were if they are living in a city in, without naming, and the largest city in New Brunswick, Moncton or Gieppe. You don't want that type of zoning in a rural area. That doesn't make sense. People have been living there. You don't want to bring and have very strict zoning because people will not, it won't go through the process because people will say this is not reasonable. So it's very important to have something that's flexible and not too rigid. So that's probably the most important thing to do when you start with no zoning. Because in High Rivers, that's where we are, like we saw on the map, most of it has no zoning, so we can't come in very full guns a-blazing and being very restrictive because people won't accept it. And when you do zoning and you do planning, it's important to listen to the people to see what's comfortable and what they are willing to accept. That's pretty much.
So that begs the question again, so if you're doing that planning for those areas and no one was spoken to or no one had input from the community, you're still running into that same issue.
Mhm. That's why, even if we had a committee and we started the discussion, I mean, those discussion and those position will be brought to the public for them to decide if that reflects on what they want. And that's why even if, because you can't start asking what people want when there's nothing to start with, because there's no, we had nothing to start with because there was no zoning. So we had to start the discussion with a committee and
No, I get that. I'm just
Mhm.
like devil's advocate, that's all.
yeah, and I mean, so in the coming month, we will have to have that process of consultation and we will have to find a balance between the resident, the farmers, the business owners, and find a middle ground, even when it comes to industrial activities, because we probably, we are aware of certain activities or industrial, businesses, already in Five Rivers, and we do have to deal with them. And what is, what might be difficult when you do any type of zoning regulation, it's a balancing act. And the people who live there have a say, but the people who have businesses or an industry or a farm, they have their right, they have a right to be heard as well. And sometimes, well, people don't want certain things, but those type of, whether it's agriculture or industrial activity, they do have some right to be there and operate their business. So usually that's where sometimes there's a little bit of conflict. And that part of the process usually happens in the public consultation, which will be coming in the next few months. So the last point on that one is like I said, to consult with your community, discuss and be as transparent as possible. I know maybe lately, some people, there was some false narrative going around that the process was not done accordingly, and there was some false information going around that things were not being done as they should, but at the end of the day, things, they need to be done in the right way and the legal way, and saying that things are done behind closed door, that's not the facts. So it's important, I think, for council and the public in general to know that. And anything that was discussed is not the final say or the final word. That will be for council after listening to the public, that they will decide what it is in the end. So next slide. So what comes next? So we discussed about what's in a rural plan, what was done, and so where are we going now with this? So so a draft of the written documents could be circulated to council, whether it's in July or August. That's council that can decide when we come back with a presentation about the major section or the highlight of the plan. So that will be in July or August. The council can decide tonight or later regarding that. As I said previously, we have a zoning map that's fairly final from the commission and the committee's position. And that could be circulated in July or August. And like I said, even if that map on our end is a pretty good snapshot of what is there and what it could be in the future, it doesn't mean that it can't be changed. So that's why when we do the public consultation, people will be able to come and see that map. Oh, that's my property. Okay, it's zone residential. Yeah, I'm good with that. So what's next door? Oh, that's what's next door. I'm not sure if I like that. You can't control what's next door, but you can have a say about what's on your property. And of course, you can have opinions about what's down the road but that, I mean, like they say, everyone wants to control their property, but they want to control what's next door too, and that's not how it works. So, presentation to council again, if council wants to, have a draft presented in July or August, we'll have that scheduled. While doing that, us at the commission were writing the actual bylaw. We're putting it in a proper format because we know what needs to be in it, how it is in the documents, because there's a certain way that Fredericton wants a rural plan or a zoning bylaw to be structured. And like I said, all the topics needs to be there, so we write it as it is how we know they want it in Fredericton. So to have all the topics in a proper format, everything needs to be bilingual as well. So excuse me, everything is being translated as well in English and French. So so that's where we are in the writing or putting everything together phase. Next
So
slide.
the bylaw would be voted on by council? Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, so we were with the committee with Rob to put it in a proper format.
Yes.
Once it's finished like this, council will say, well, I think we like what this is, and the public consultation will happen at the same time, so nothing, and the last, again, I say, this is a zoning land use, so the last word will be council.
Right. Okay.
So the commission is there to coach and make sure that legally everything is in the bylaw. But at the end of the day, the vision and the direction of the bylaw, it has to be voted and adopted by council. They have the last word on it of what it is and where we are going with the documents. So we were planning to, during the committee, we did have, as we saw after looking at what we see and what is in place in Five Rivers. Five Rivers is probably with Saint Marie, the two areas in Kent County where we find the most agricultural land, the most farms, small farms, medium farms. We don't have the big farms, but we do have a lot of agriculture. And those uses are important and they need to be considered, respected, and listened to. So that's why we had an ID. Usually the other plans that we did elsewhere in Kent County, since we didn't have the agricultural aspect so important because of they are existing, they're here in Five Rivers. We decided that probably would be important to meet all of those farmers, small business farmers, and all those people. So we would probably have a public open door event just for that topic. If council wants to have another, council find that there's another topic that should have a special open door event, that's the council's prerogative. But we found that agriculture is so important for Five Rivers that we thought it would be a very good thing to do for the community. And we would have another open door with all the topics. So at that meeting, it would be all the layers of the zoning, there would be maps, the document would be over there. People from council and the committee could be there to answer questions. I would be there, obviously, and we could talk with people. We would have maybe a dozen of large maps everywhere, and people could look at it and discuss, and we would have that special consultation just for agriculture. And I would want to point out that those public open door events are not required by law. And I say that because this is just to show that we're doing extra steps to be transparent and to consult with the population. Because those two are not even required, but we always find, whether it's here or when we finished Beau Rivage last year, we did it over there. We didn't do the agricultural open door event because there's not much agriculture there. But those are just steps to prove that there's some transparency and that we do want to listen to people. So the adoption of the new rural plan would be maybe spring 2027. The adoption itself is 4 to 6 months usually. And even then, there's some consultation during that time period as well. So during that time, we have copies of the bylaw here at the municipality and up at our offices for many weeks, even months, that people can come, take notes, ask questions, leave information to, I don't know, they could come and look at the map and say, oh, my land is for agriculture, I'm not sure if I want that to be agriculture. But they could say that, well, actually, I would want my land to be just plain residential instead of agriculture, and that's fine. Or they could come and look at the map and say, oh, it's zoned residential. I think I want my land to be agriculture. They will have the opportunity to say what they want to go ahead with their the zoning of their own property. So there's always there will be many opportunities to people to have that discussion and to see what is being brought forward and how they want to have that, for them to. So the commission and usually council is not there to force anything, especially like I said, when there's no zoning, we want to be flexible. And I think that's a good, so it would be, if we follow that, it would be ready for, next year, for the new construction season next year. And, yeah, pretty much it, so. I don't know if there's any question, I know we drifted a little bit and on certain aspect, but, if there's anything else that, there's any question about, the committee and how it went, or if, you have a question about what, did anyone have a chance to go through the existing bylaw of Harcourt and Five River, just to see what it looks like and what it contains? Or that could give you a pretty good idea of what it will look like, or what's included in those.
Oh, does anyone have anything to add or any questions?
Not me, yeah, I'm sure there'll be some.
Does the council want to decide if we are going with another meeting regarding the rough draft of the documents at this time, or council will decide that at a later date?
In terms of having the committee say this is the final?
Well, for me to come and have an overview of the highlights of what is included in the plan in July or August.
Like-
Well, I think,
You'd like to come back with like a template?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, with all of the section, like the policies and proposals, and all of the zone with what is included in those zones. So I don't think we, at this point, will go into the details of size of parking space and height of fence. I don't think we're at that point that would be, I mean, that's not the, it is important, but it's not the big highlight
no, I don't
of the
think we need to
plan.
discuss those details. That's kind of the weeds of everything, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but, I know for me, I can only speak for myself. I'd like to have an overview of what's going on because
A little more
I'm
informed.
unfamiliar
Yes,
as well as everyone else. Michael
Absolutely.
would probably know, or sorry, Councillor Robertson would probably know more than what the rest of us might.
Yeah.
But it would be very good for us to get an overview
mhm,
to kind of get our teeth into it a little bit before we start making any decisions on it.
Absolutely.
and the type of mail out, because I remember we had a discussion at the Saint Charles orientation day.
Yes.
And I think we talked about not having everything online, because it's not everyone that will go and see posting on the website or Facebook or just
And
social
some people
media.
don't have to do-
And
That's-
what we can do as well sometimes is having mail outs being done and sent to the resident of Five Rivers. And I can pass these around just to give you an idea of what it could look like. And, so if you look at it, what it says is, that we will have a open door type of of event for people to come, ask questions and consult the map to, ask question and, discuss with their neighbors and business owners or farmers about what is being, suggested. And, it would be usually those type of events, they go, really well because even people can come over there and meet, people that they didn't know and, try to find, common ground to better their community. So, that's an extra step that can be done as well. And, yeah, so,
I think these are.
that's just an extra level again of consultation and transparency. We're not there. A lot of people, they hear zoning or bylaws and they're like, ooh, it's there to get us. The bylaw is not there to get anyone or anything. It's just there to have to organize everything. So, and zoning is good because if you don't want something in your community that you don't like, or a type of use that's not welcome, when you have your zoning there and they wanna come and they're, let's say, an industrial use, well, they have to go through a rezoning and a public process. And like I said, when it comes to zoning, council has the last word. So if the municipality don't want that type of use in their municipality, they can say, sorry, but no thanks. It's not for us, and they move along, and that use is told to go elsewhere, that it doesn't fit with our vision for our municipality. So,
I think this is a good step.
yeah.
This
So,
agriculture planning. Is it gonna consist of like, we have a farm. And we farm the neighbor's land.
yes,
Does his land stay as farmland?
if you want them to be farmland, they will stay farmland.
Well,
Yes, unless, I mean, like I said earlier, council has their last word. So, but I wouldn't see why council would say, no, you're not getting farming or agricultural designation.
Okay.
I won't see that. But if someone wants to say, let's have a pig factory like they did in Saint Marie a couple of years ago, oh, that would be a big no-no. But a small scale farming,
Yeah.
and that was one of the topics that we talked about a lot during our conversation, because we had people on the committee that are farmers and small business owners. So they really wanted their voice to be heard, and they wanted other farmers to be heard as well. So,
okay, now what
Yes.
about in the town limits? Farmland.
in the former village of Rexton, where we call it the core, usually farming is a little bit more limited there. It's possible to have some farming, like a garden, or even having chickens, or that, again, that topic was discussed with the committee and we did take a stand on it. And, but usually you have a little bit less in the core village. Because you don't want that type of use right where the houses are closer and whatnot, so. But outside of the former village limits, it's pretty, it will be fairly flexible and very, I think people with farmland will be happy with what they will be able to do with their land.
So then, okay, what you're telling me then is that I use this land next door to us?
Is that in
Been
the,
farmland all its life.
okay, yeah. Is that within the village limit or
Yeah,
not?
next door.
Oh, You're good, you've already had a farm,
Yeah,
already established.
Yeah, but it's not my farmland.
No, but you're still farming it, and if
Oh,
the
yeah.
person that owns
Yeah.
it says they want it farmland,
absolutely.
there's no issue.
Yeah,
Okay, what about putting cattle there? That gonna
Well,
be
if
an
it's
issue?
farmland, wouldn't that include that?
We've always put cattle there, I mean.
that's
Well,
within the
they
town,
don't- they don't stay
that's within
around.
the village limit?
Yes.
Yes, but it's,
Backyard, really.
Yeah, it's right behind.
yes.
Yeah, it's in back there.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, Frankie had cattle here forever.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
if,
See the zoning when you get the draft, you'll see.
yeah,
That's where they come out and they look at the zoning, and if they put it residential and the owner says, no, I want it
Yeah.
agriculture, that's where it gets changed.
Absolutely.
Everything gets like
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We
permanent.
were not expecting,
I've seen a lot of these rezonings and sometimes they're not as good as they say.
yeah,
This-
well, the agricultural zone that we've prepared is pretty extensive, meaning that there's a long list of things that farmers will be able to do.
Right.
And, just for Five Rivers, in other municipalities, we had um, small scale farming, like hobby farming. But because it's everywhere in Five Rivers, we decided to have a two-tier type of
Okay.
hobby farming. So on top of having agricultural, zoning, we have a two-tier hobby farming for people in the rural areas where they can have that type of farming without actually having a full-fledged agriculture farming. So there's like several possibilities
Right.
for people to have gardens and animals or horses or chicken or
So
cows.
in this plan, then there's a protection to the farmers, for the farmers,
Absolutely,
is that right?
yes. Yeah, and at the next meeting, we'll go more into what the agricultural zone entails, and I think the resident and council will be happy with the work that was done.
Right.
It was, from all of the zoning or rural plan that I did in Kent County, it will be the one that we did spend the most time to establish and talk and protect farmers.
Right. Okay, is there protection in that program for stripping topsoil off farmland?
Well,
The
that's,
government had that in-
yeah, that's an interesting and current topic because actually there's an ongoing legal battle elsewhere in Kent County where they are taking the topsoil and bringing it to Moncton.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the province said that the zoning bylaw is not able to protect a municipality with that. Even if we put it in the bylaw, they said it doesn't have legal, it doesn't have teeth to for it to stay.
So the province has precedent.
It's
What we do.
it for that, on that topic, it's right now, it's interesting that you mentioned that because last month we had an issue elsewhere in Kent and yeah, so it will
It's under
probably.
the Farm Act. You're allowed. to do
No,
it.
well, land use is regulated in the Community Planning Act, and that was something that would have been in the natural resources. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's an ongoing case
Right,
and I mean,
But I know in the Prime Act that it was set for 2 acres. That's all you could ever take off your farmland in a lifetime.
Okay.
And there's a lot more being taken off than what there should be.
I mean, like I said, it can be added to the bylaw and most of our other bylaws have something to protect the topsoil. But it has come to our attention and to the Department of Environment and Local Government, which is the department that oversees us and the municipalities and, yeah, it's an issue right now and it will probably end up being a legal, situation and the, I don't have more information on that.
Okay, so maybe we can shelve that for now and
Yeah, no,
go back.
But I think you will be happy with what we did for small and family farms in Five Rivers.
Anything more to add from anyone or question? Well, thank you, sir, so very much. Really appreciate your presentation tonight, all the information you've given us.
And we're there to help, and we're, like I said, there's sometimes that zoning is said to be there to catch us and get us, but it's not true. It's really there to actually to have a fair play for everyone on each side of.
Okay,
So I will leave the extra copies here and templates for the consultation that will go from there, and I will can't wait to hear about when is the next time,
And
and
we're meeting on July 14th.
yeah, that would be a little bit too soon for us to have something.
But it'll give us an opportunity to discuss it further.
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know it was long, but
But we had a lot of questions. though.
yeah, it was important to have that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So number 9.
Thank
nothing
you.
under business. Take care. Number 10, nothing, we will open this meeting. Okay, recommendation for moving the system here.
That doesn't apply if you don't close.
Okay. I guess for the dates for the next meeting would be a regular meeting, July 13th, or July 14th, sorry.
Yeah.
2026. For adjournment, motion 062326.02 for adjournment. Do I have a motion? Counselor Fillmore. Second. Second, Counselor Ricky. All in favor? Aye. Nay. Motion carried. Sure, absolutely do. That's 3 minutes for you.